But what was I going to ask? Oh, yes, so I wanted to raise the other question, and this has been out there for a while now, that you've got the big, successful parks, Central Park, Bryant Park, sort of gazillions of money coming in from private developers. Meanwhile, you've got sort of Corona Plaza and that are struggling to survive. So there was a notion out there that we should tithe the big guys, take 10% of their revenue and spread it around the weaker ones. There was a big adverse reaction to that. A lot of people said, it'll never work, the funders will stop funding us, and so on. What's our current thinking about that idea?
I think that that's exactly what's going to happen, that the funders are going to run away because people are interested in something concrete that they know and that's there. And otherwise, then why not tax like Minneapolis does tax? It has a tax for parks, and therefore that assures of an equitable distribution. That's going to be in the end.
Been a problem. Well, there was a notion that you would still allow donors to, if they so choose, to actually specify what they wanted to do with their money. But there might be other people who would donate anyway and say, sure, we don't mind if 10% of it goes someplace else. So we haven't tried it, but have you heard any talk in the city of that happening?
Yep, and we are starting to do it not in capital dollars per se, but in other programming resources. So for example, we have a very robust temporary art program at DOT, and all artists want Manhattan Plaza sites. Everyone wants to go there. And so something that we're starting to do is saying, yes, you can have your sculpture in Times Square, but that also means that that sculpture will be relocated to, Brownsville and Corona Plaza as part of that. So the tithing, but also this idea of sister plazas or sister public spaces where there can start to be resource sharing, and hopefully that will grow into actual dollars and cents.
You think that's a good idea, John? You think that'll work? In terms of your experience?
I think social equity is always a good idea. So the question is, how do we achieve it effectively? And it's often an empirical question as to what will achieve it, what will in fact happen. But from the get-go, foundationally, in any program that in any way, shape, or form relies on private funding, whether it's for city parks or privately owned public space, or even to some degree the plazas that suddenly have sub-concessionaires or others taking over, one has to keep in mind, how do we guarantee that these benefits are distributed throughout the city so that everybody, rich and poor, can equally benefit from it? And many of these programs axiomatically don't do that because they are relying on private funding, which has a private interest component to it. So we have to be very intentional about this from the get-go, structuring it into the law. So I can give you an example. Were I to have been there in 1961 crafting the initial privately owned public space program, maybe, just maybe, I would have thought that somebody could get a bonus and the park or plaza would be provided 50 blocks away in a poorer neighborhood. Now, there are lots of issues involved there, dealing with physical planning and relationships and making sure that this is a density ameliorating space. But nonetheless, that must be considered, in my judgment, as I have said from the beginning.